Your next race will be at the Nurburgring, known as a proving ground for auto manufacturers around the world.
The Nurburgring is one of the most varied circuits in the world. During the 24-hour race, drivers must know every inch of the track to avoid costly mistakes.
Wait, they've done it again. For future reference, Emerossi should always be in an Italian car. That was an excellent start. Yes, popcorn to a horror movie. This is Nurburgring, full circuit. I'm not joking about the 170 corners, or the fact that it's 26 kilometers. This is probably one of, well, not the most technical tracks in Forza, but one of the more annoying technical tracks. My goal is to place first, but given that the AI named Rossi is almost a half kilometer ahead of me, means I'm definitely going to have to out-pit stop him. I'm not entirely sure if that's possible. Yes, something along those lines. It's supposed to be 125 miles, but if my calculations are correct, this is probably going to be closer to 130. Multiple buckets of popcorn is probably a good idea. Now, this is technically a 24-car race, but there are, I guess, 10 in the lower class. It's basically a multi-class race, and I'm in the more powerful class. So there's 10 in the lower class, and 14 in this class. So I basically have to make a class victory, not an overall victory. If I was in the class down, it would still have to be a class victory. Come on. I've got to find some way of passing this BMW before the straightaway. Oh. Being horrible on the carousel apparently did not work that well. In fact, it's probably cost me a lot. Okay, and we're just about to get to the straightaway, at which point I will be able to talk more about what you're seeing. Okay. The HUD's pretty much straightforward. We have place in the upper left, sort of distances, lower left, and lap and map location, lower left, upper right, time and overall time, and then current lap time, and then lower right, speedometer, tachometer, oops, and you'll see that there are two bars. One is blue, one is red. Red is braking. Blue is gas. And the four squares are tire temperature gauges. Ideally, I don't want them to be red. I'm running in metric, so it's a bit off from miles, but it's pretty easy ballpark calculation. Every 80 of my kilometers is about 50 miles. This portion of the track right now is the Grand Prix circuit. This is mostly things like F1 racing, and I tend to enjoy it a bit more than Nordschleife, which is the really twisty bit that we've just been on. Now, in most cases, if I was doing endurance racing, I would have spent, I guess, somewhere between 4 and maybe 12 hours tuning the car. And in this case, I didn't, because I'm not actually offered the ability to tune the car, just which car I'd like to drive. So in this case, we are driving the, I think it's the 2014 Chevy Corvette C7R, which made its debut at, I want to say it sort of made its debut at Le Mans last year. So most of my prep work for this was just making sure I knew how many laps I could go reliably before having to refuel, because if I miss one, I'm completely hosed. So hopefully we will only have to lap at the end of every third, or we will only have to pit at the end of every third lap. However, if there's an accident, I will probably have to limp into the lap or into the pit. That will cost a great amount of time, and it probably, depending on where it happens, probably better to just restart the race. Of course, my real problem is that the AIs appear to have been blessed with an abundance of horsepower for first and second place, which unfortunately is the difficulty curve. Yeah, the upshot is that if I can limp back into the pit, Yeah, I get full fuel and new rubber, but I will also get all of my bits repaired. So I will be technically back up to competitive performance. But, you know, the time lost getting to the pit will probably mean that placing anywhere reasonable is almost impossible. Oh man, you can see R. Davis. This is moderately good signs, especially if I'm as close to first and second by the end of second lap. Oh, Davis is okay. He's a medium hard AI. First place, M. Rossi. He is the devil. We make no jokes about Rossi. He is the devil. He's had pretty much the entire motorsport franchise to earn that title. All the named AIs took a break in Forza 5 because they decided to replace them with Drivatars. But for the showcase events, which is what the Endurance series is part of, they brought back the named AIs because they're better drivers than the drivatars. Oh, yay. Wait, they're doing 2-lap pit stops? Oh, yay! This is extremely good news. Actually in this series, he's driving a BMW for unfathomable reasons. There actually used to be a rule in the 360 Forzas where, I guess starting in Motorsport 3, Rossi would only drive Italian cars. Because his nationality is Italian and he's an Italian racer, so he only drives Italian sports cars. But that seems to have been changed in Forza 6. He seems to just choose a car at random from the ones available. That's kind of disappointing, actually. Because you always sort of knew that if you saw a really annoying driver in a Ferrari, it was Rossi. Maybe, who knows? I mean, Rossi really was, if it wasn't a Ferrari, he wouldn't drive it. And then I think in Forza 4 they let him go into Lancias and Maseratis. But, you know, he definitely had to be Italian supercars. He really wouldn't drive anything American or anything Japanese or Asian. But now, I mean, he's driving German cars and American cars and English cars, and it's really bizarre. I suspect that Rossi would be the kind of person who would own a A86, which is a Japanese car, but he would never drive it. He'd own it as like a showpiece. Tree, because I'm wondering how my rubber's doing. Okay, 40% wear. It's better than I hoped. Tire wear is another thing you have to take into account. Seeing as I'm driving on simulation, sort of a stealth timer as to when your car becomes progressive. Or yeah, it's a stealth timer. And as it increases, your car becomes progressively more and more undrivable. Forza 6 is the first Forza where I've actually had to align my pit strategies with fuel consumption. Usually you'd align it with tire wear. And so you go for a specific tire wear level, like, was it in Forza 4, I guess I aligned my tire wear to about 60%. In 5, I started at 60% and I eventually moved it to about 70%. But I haven't had to do any tire wear alignment except for one track where I could go 14 laps before pitting, but in the last series of corners, both of my front tires say that they've suddenly hit 80% wear. And that's sort of an indicator that you should really pit now. Because at 80% wear, you don't have a lot of rubber left. And you're going to start to be, you have to take corners a lot slower. Otherwise, you're just not going to stick to the road. Now at 8 laps, at some point, I'm probably going to start catching up to the trailing cars in the class below. At that point, racing will become exciting again because I will have to deal with traffic. But until then, I'm pretty much just racing the course and making sure that I stay ahead of Rossi. Two sideways. And back to the straightaway. Huh, okay. I'm now 2 seconds up. That's good. That will save me some time into the pit. Actually, as I think about it, I don't think Rossi in Forza 4 would even compete in courses that weren't in Europe. It was a very strange, very good, an extremely aggressive AI. Very often showing up in a car that was significantly better than anybody else's. Okay, we are in first pit stop. Fuel and rubber. And this is why pit strategies are so important, because I've now lost about a half a kilometer. And it's still falling. So now I have to stay ahead of Rossi and hope that he sticks to a 2-lap pit schedule. Because he's now practically caught up to me. This is the strategy of endurance racing. So I think my big hope for this race, aside from completing it and being in first, is actually setting a clean lap. Anytime you've seen a press Y to rewind, that's because my lap's been dirtied. At which point rewinding doesn't matter because that dirties the lap too. I have rewind enabled. I'm going to try and not use it unless I really destroy my car. But the Nurburgring is just one of those tracks that I have a really difficult time setting a clean lap on. That's just driving solo, which is what I'm effectively doing at this point. And it's mostly because it's not as wide as it looks. It's maybe 2 car widths, 3 at the most. And it's just so technical that going off sides or bumping into something is just really easy. I am actually surprised that I've made up 4 seconds. Almost completely undone the damage from pitting time-wise. Here we are back at the carousel. This is, unfortunately, one of my least favorite corners because I find it so difficult to get the corner done even remotely correctly. It's technically a banked corner, but it's a very tight banked corner, and the bank is, I would say, just slightly wider than one car. So very often, I either end up in the outer ring, which is for slow traffic, or just sort of flipping through the curb, which doesn't do very well for speed, handling, or time. That's good. I thought I'd thrown away a lot more time with all that off-road stuff. Okay, it looks like the AIs are sticking to 2-lap pits. Which I think basically means I've got this in the bag. Which means next race may up the difficulty. So that I don't make it to first as quickly. And then keep it there. Also, hopefully they will make the AI's pit strategies more aggressive. Although knowing Rossi, it'll switch his pit strategies to impossible. as I come up to the carousel, or, well, second carousel, on the straightaway, I will explain why I'm using bumper cam instead of flying cam or cockpit cam or hood cam. I don't usually drive flying cam because I may get a bunch of extra situational awareness, but for some reason I just lose my ability to steer in a timely manner. My reaction time just goes away. Cockpit cam has almost no field of view. This is cool for race cars because then it blocks out the sun. Unfortunately, it also means you can't see anything. Hood cam, I could drive hood cam, but at this point, you know, if I'm doing hood cam, I might as well just do bumper cam. The visibility from cockpit cam is actually really a problem in a lot of the race cars. Some road cars have poor visibility out the front windshield, but it's mostly race cars. The prototype ones are actually even worse than these GT endurance racers. That at least this endurance racer, the sort of the cutoff on the left and the right is still structure. On the prototypes, you just sort of get an oval because there really is no forward support structure on the windscreen. It's more of a wraparound to the doors. I will probably try and show that when I do a race that has me in a prototype car. There's several in this series. So I may do a run in a Peugeot 908 next time. So, one of the, I guess, unsuspecting dangerous things with doing endurance racing, or in fact any long-haul racing really, is, especially on a circuit, it can become very meditative, and you suffer lapses of concentration. So I would say all of lap 6 has been me sort of almost falling asleep at the wheel, because I've done this quite a bit. And yes, it is an endurance test. It is very much an endurance test. This is 200 kilometers, and there is actually 1,000 kilometers of Nurburgring, so this is about a fifth of that. And there's also a 24-hour of Nurburgring. Fortunately, one person does not have to drive the entirety of that. Yes, let's apply the brakes instead of the gas when leaving the pit. Ace strats, I tell you, ace strats. Most endurance teams are actually teams of 3 drivers. So each one's got to do about 8 hours total. There's also a lot of different rules in that, such as if driver A gets out of the car and driver B gets in the car, driver A can't get into the car again until driver C has. So, you know, you may have somebody who's really proficient at wet driving, and you'll have them come in, you know, as it starts raining. But then nightfall occurs, but you can't put your nightfall guy back in because you have to put somebody else in, and they actually have to do a regular series of passes. They actually have to do a minimum series of runs around until you can swap drivers out again. Part of that's also, in order to swap drivers, you got to pit. And even if you pit to do nothing but swap drivers and peel one of the layers of the windshield off, that's still going to cost you an awful lot of time. So much so that, you know, you really have to ask yourself, is it worth it to, you know, pit twice just to get one person in? Sometimes it's just let the guy do the let the guy do a 4-hour stint, the other guy do a 4-hour stint. 8 hours from now, it will probably still be night. I think the good news is we may actually be catching up to the tail of S-Class, because I saw them on the map just as I was coming in to the pit stop. So maybe by lap 8 we will be able to catch up to them. I'm actually wondering now if an hour, a quarter, might not actually be dead on the money, plus or minus a few minutes. Most of my endurance planning has generally fit around time-based endurance racing, so it's just going as far as you can in a given period of time. In which case, my estimations are massively conservative, or they're generally conservative. I usually end up doing a bit better. in terms of distance. But the deviation's always been a few percent. I'm wondering if all of my spreadsheets might not actually be a lot more accurate than I thought they would be. Because you do end up having a lot more, you know, fast laps or on-time laps, and you do slow laps, like the first lap. So what was it? Earlier today, I pulled out my PS3 and hooked it back up because I was wondering how much Sony was selling GT6 for. I may not be a terribly big fan of the GT series and have some issues with the control input, but Gran Turismo has some interesting things they do with prototype and design and totally fictional cars. And I was actually kind of surprised that GT6 is all of $15. Wasn't really going to buy it, but, you know, $15 for the opportunity to just sort of futz around with some cars, if the game will let me, is kind of a tempting idea. But, I mean, there's also minor problems with dealing with Gran Turismo's licensing, which is the will it actually let me use the cars. There's also, you know, the fact that Polyphony sort of sells Gran Turismo with the, hey, we have 1,200 cars. But the truth is that, you know, they really haven't ever culled anything from their car database. And so there are times when you can hit a bunch of really old meshes from GT2 and GT3. And, you know, their selection of cars generally isn't much better than Forza. But you can have virtually any version of a particular model you want. And on lap 8, we are finally catching up to the supercars. Or these may be hypercars. I didn't actually look at the grid. Or are these touring cars? These just detuned touring cars. Yeah, these are just detuned touring cars. Okay. Thought they would be using supercars, but instead we've just got seriously hopped up Hondas and Toyotas, and I think there's a Nissan somewhere. See if we can't find any more before the race ends. Yeah, I honestly thought the S-Class would be hypercars, you know. Get out some McLarens and some Ferraris and the odd Pagani and Maserati. Instead, we're getting race versions of road cars. This is the last lap. Let's just completely blow every corner that we can. that was an awful, almost last corner. But we're almost done. Ouch, 14 seconds down. That's actually a pretty horrific last lap. So we may not hit our 2:15.35. Actually, we may hit 1:15.35. It's 30 seconds, and I'm pretty sure that we can do 30 seconds, if not less. Unless we stuff it into a barrier. Even then, I think we're close enough to pull it off. Oh, so that was 2:15, probably 26. Jeez, so many reward spins for so little money. 50,000. 150,000. Race results. Okay, they say 25. But Forza's got this really evil problem with rounding numbers. So we appear to have put out an average lap time of 9 minutes 18, possibly less the pit stop losses. Otherwise, it's 9 minutes 26, which is pretty good. I guess all I have to do now is figure out average speed. But I'd say that's good. Rossi eventually fell to 4th, but I mean, you can see that Rossi's AI is not playing around. He's, you know, his fastest time is 3 seconds faster than the nearest competition. Yeah. 3 seconds faster. So I suspect that in the future, I may up the difficulty level a bit. Not bad. I like that time. I wish it could be clean, but we aren't gonna hold our breath for the world. And that is 125 miles of Nurburgring full circuit. We're done. We're done. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next. I'm kind of tempted by Le Mans, but gonna have to look around. If you thought Nurburgring was difficult or dull, the Indianapolis 250 is very literally driving in a circle for what my estimate is an hour 9, and that will have roughly 39-second laps. So there are 100 laps. That I suspect that I will wait for just a day when I need to switch my brain off, because that's all you do. The only problem with Indy is that it's a 4-kilometer track, so you're going to be in traffic, and moderately heavy traffic, moving at really high speeds, almost constantly at at a certain point. Everything will slowly sort of shift around. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed. Very, very dull thing. Nurburgring is probably the most technical track of the ones here. Bathurst is probably the closest in terms of technicality, if only because it's a really narrow track with all corners have got walls. So if you really mess up, you end up bouncing off walls a lot. That's it. If I can answer. Otherwise, I guess I will shut the stream down and start working on the final calculations of this race. Okay, well, I guess we shall call it a day. I'm not sure when I'll do the next endurance race. I may make it a weekend thing. I've basically done all the legwork for all these races, so I could just do whichever one I feel like doing. So today I sort of felt like doing Nurburgring. Well, it's been nice having the people that stopped by to watch. And thank you. Bye-bye, and